webinar on live demo of GST report preparation on 30th May 2017. We did not expect over 950 registrations and attendance of over 345 participants. We were very happy to see your response and thought this is a second attendance for webinar. But after seeing the response to the today's webinar, I think we need to change our opinion. Our today's webinar on GST has received over 1,250 registrations and we can see the result. Today we have attendance of 500 plus in this webinar, which I am sure must be a history. This also shows one thing, that the people are keen to gain practical knowledge of GST and we are encouraged to organize some more webinars like this for the benefit of our professional friends. Friends, in case some of our professional brothers and sisters are unable to attend this technical session of digital data matching center, we will try to share the recording of this webinar on YouTube so that anyone can access it at the place and time of their choice. Friends, as you already know that after the passage of GST bill in Lok Sabha on 29th March 2017, I am C. Raj Chawla.
Thank you, C. Raj Chawla ji. Good evening, friends. I'm sorry, it seems there is some disruption in connection with C. Raj Chawla ji, who is present in Delhi, and I am making presentation from Mumbai. So this is the technology which is helping us conduct this webinar. I hope the technology allows us to continue our presentation without any further disruptions. Friends, at the outset, I would like to say thank you to C. Raj Chawla ji for providing me this opportunity to share some thoughts on the subject of GST, which at the moment is talk of the town. It has always been a pleasure to share thoughts with you on the subject of common interest. I have interest in the subject of information technology affecting our accounting profession. Earlier, I used to interact with you on the subject of digital financial reporting or XBRL. Now we have another interesting subject of GST. An interesting aspect of GST implementation in India is that there will be exchange of data between taxpayer and GST network through computer systems on a near real-time basis. It is not real-time basis, but it is near real-time basis. There will be no hard copy of tax returns which will be filed at GST network. We believe that this is going to bring a significant change in the way we look at GST compliance work. It would be more important to learn as to how the automation of entire supply chain of tax administration network will function, how the GST returns will be filed using compliance software, how reconciliation of mismatch in data in inward and outward supplies will be done. Can it be done without use of software applications? And this is what we are going to discuss in our today's presentation. Our agenda for today is to discuss about GST system architecture. Friends, it is important to know about how GST system architecture has been designed, how the tax administration will function, so that we can understand how the returns are filed, what is the filing process, how the data will be downloaded from GST system, and then how it will be reconciled by using software applications. So we will discuss about GST system architecture, then GST returns and its filing process. Then we'll discuss about data mismatch, reconciliation of data mismatch, and in the end we'll also have a question and answer session. It is important to understand about the GST system and tax administration system which is being implemented for GST returns, filing to assessment. Friends, we all are accountants and not information technology experts. However, globally people are recognizing the need for tax practitioners to have some knowledge of information technology, and in particular about artificial intelligence, which is known as AI, and RPI, which is known as robotic process automation. These terms are commonly used in tax administration nowadays. E&Y has recently published an interesting article, A New Resume, How Digital Disruption Will Change the Role of Tax Professionals in Future. This was authored by Janib, who is E&Y Global Vice Chair Tax. Janib has discussed about the disruptive trend in tax practice that will demand a broader skill set from tax professionals, which includes artificial intelligence and robotic process automation. Keeping the role of information technology in tax practice in mind, let us briefly discuss about GST system architecture. Friends, you can see the diagram on your screen which depicts the GST system architecture. Now here we have taxpayer accounting application in the form of ERP systems, SAP, custom accounting application, standalone accounting application. So from here the sales register and purchase register data will be exported to compliance software, and then compliance software will prepare the GST returns. GSTR1, it will upload the GSTR1 to GSP portal, and from GSP portal it will download the inward supply of goods and services data, and then it will reconcile that data with the data which it has received from ERP system or accounting system. And after reconciliation, the reconciled GSTR return will be uploaded again at GSP portal. From GSP portal, the data will travel to GST server by using the secured network in the form of MPLS or multi-protocol label switching. Friends, I have discussed in detail about digital tax administration system in my previous webinar on practical aspects of GST. However, for the benefit of some of our friends who were not able to participate in the previous webinar, I'll try to briefly touch upon the digital tax administration system. GST will bring about a major change in the tax system by redistributing the burden of taxation equitably between manufacturing and services. It will enable broadening of tax base, reduce distortions by applying the destination principle of taxation for levy of taxes. It will create common market across the country, reduce compliance cost by doing away the multiple of taxes, and will help in promotion of exports. To achieve all this, a digital tax administration system or GSTN is being implemented. The key feature of GST systems are that it enables digitization and automation of the whole chain in tax administration system. All the business processes surrounding GST are automated and all documents are processed electronically. All returns filed at GSTN will be electronic, like invoice level data of inward supply of goods or services, data of outward supply of goods or services, and the monthly return. There are no hard copy of returns filed at GSTN. An electronic cash ledger will be maintained at GSTN, which maintains the summary of all payments made by taxpayer. It keeps a record of payment of tax, interest, penalty, fees, and others. Similarly, an electronic input tax credit ledger will also be maintained at GSTN. Data of inward supply of goods or services will be matched with the data of supplier. Similarly, the data of outward supply of goods or services will be matched with the data of recipient of supplies. With all the data of supplies being fed into GSTN on a near real-time basis, GSTN can auto-calculate the tax liability of a taxpayer without even the taxpayer filing its return. Taxpayer will hardly get enough time to cross-check the tax liability and calculated by GSTN. This digitization and automation of the whole chain of tax administration system will lead to faster processing and reconciliation of tax information. It will also enable risk-based scrutiny by tax authorities. A fully electronic GST system can dramatically increase tax collections by reducing revenue leakage. Tools such as matching of invoice level data of supplier and recipient for providing input tax credit to taxpayer, data mining, and pattern detection can be used to control various kinds of fraud and tax evasions. Friends, I have covered GST returns and its filing process in detail in one of my earlier webinars also. However, for some of our friends who have not attended that webinar, I'll try to briefly discuss about GST returns and its filing process. A regular taxpayer needs to file 3 returns every month, and at the end of the year, he needs to file one annual return. So a regular taxpayer needs to file 37 returns every year. A composition supplier has been given relaxation in return filing. He needs to file one return at the end of every quarter. Then there is different requirement for return filing in case of non-resident, taxable person, input service distributor, persons having UIN number, etc. Friends, due to time constraint, we cannot discuss about all these returns. So for our today's session, we'll discuss about requirement of a regular taxpayer only. A regular taxpayer needs to file three returns every month, which is GSTR1, GSTR2 and GSTR3. GSTR1 is detail of outward supply of goods or services made by the taxpayer during the month, and the deadline for filing GSTR1 is 10th of subsequent month. GSTR2 is details of inward supply of goods and services by the taxpayer. The deadline for filing GSTR2 is 15th of subsequent month. GSTR3 is monthly return, which has outward supply flow from GSTR1 and inward supply flow from GSTR2. The deadline for filing GSTR3 is 20th of subsequent month. Then there is annual return in the form of GSTR9. This needs to be filed by 31st December of subsequent financial year. Now, friends, we have discussed in the beginning of my presentation that GST will be completely digitized. Everything will be online. There will be no hard copy of return file or communication between taxpayer and CBEC. Everything will be through GST portal. It is therefore important to understand how the GST system looks like, how system returns will be filed, how matching of invoice level data will be done. I can tell you here that all the return preparation, filing, reconciliation, mismatch of invoice data will be done using GST software. Now, for the purpose of filing of monthly return, the first step is to upload GSTR1, which contains details of outward supply of taxable goods or services at GST portal. This is to be done on or before 10th of next month. Invoice level data can be uploaded on a daily or weekly basis at GST portal in case the volume of invoices is large. This will enable the taxpayer to be ready before 10th of subsequent month. Step 2 is download GSTR2A, which contains the details of inward supply of goods or services, and this is made available to the recipient on the basis of GSTR1 furnished by the suppliers. This will be available by 11th of subsequent month. Step 3. The taxpayer needs to reconcile the data of inward supply of goods and services downloaded from GST portal. This can be done from 11th to 15th of subsequent month. After reconciling the data with the data in his accounting system, the taxpayer can accept or reject an invoice, or he can modify the invoice. He can also add missing invoices. Step 4. Once the reconciliation of data of inward supply is over, the taxpayer can upload GSTR2 at GST portal. Step 5. The taxpayer can download GSTR1A, which contains the details of outward supply as added, corrected or deleted by the recipient and is made available to the supplier. This would be available by 16th of the subsequent month. Step 6. The taxpayer then needs to reconcile the data of outward supply of goods and services in GSTR1A. This can be done from 16th to 17th of subsequent month. Step 7. Once reconciliation is over, the taxpayer can upload GSTR1A at GST portal. Then step 7. The taxpayer needs to reconcile the balance, cash and credit available in electronic cash ledger and electronic credit ledger. If his tax liability is more than the balance available in these accounts, then he needs to make the payment or deposit the taxes. We'll discuss about this in more detail in one of the subsequent slides. Then the last step, GSTR3 will be auto-populated by GST system on the basis of GSTR1 and GSTR2. GSTR3 needs to be filed by 20th of subsequent month. Now, data mismatch. Friends, you have seen the detailed process of filing of monthly return. The return preparation, reconciliation and uploading can be done using software application. Although in case of small number of invoices, say 50 or 200, reconciliation of data mismatch can be done manually. But where the volume is large, you need to have software applications to do reconciliation work to pinpoint exactly where is data mismatch. Here the quality of software that you use for GST compliance work counts. If the software is of good quality, it can have an inbuilt system to control some of the possible errors. This will help in substantially reducing the number of mismatched items in your return. Now, to understand where all the data mismatch can happen, we need to discuss about what all details are being fed into GST system. So one of the key area to minimize the number of mismatched items in the return is tax invoice. If the tax invoice that you issue for your sale is GST compliant, the number of mismatched items in your GSTR 1A will be minimum. Similarly, if the tax invoice which you receive for the purchase of GST is GST compliant, the number of mismatched items in your GSTR 2A will be minimum. Now let us have a look at tax invoice details that needs to be uploaded at GST portal. The details which needs to be uploaded at GST portal, you can see on your screens: name, address, GSTN of supplier, consecutive serial number of invoice which should be unique for each financial year, date of issuance of invoice, place of supply, name of state and state code, HSN code of goods, accounting code of services, description of goods or services, quantity in case of goods and units, taxable value of goods or services, rate of tax, amount of tax charged, total value of goods or services. Then place of delivery, indication of tax payable under RCM or reverse charge mechanism, signature or digital signature of supplier, the word revised invoice, supplementary invoice wherever it is applicable, recipient's detail, in case of B2B, name, address and GSTN, and in case of B2C, name and address, state name and code is required. You can see on your screen which information from tax invoice needs to be uploaded to GST portal. Therefore, this is the information that needs to match between the supplier and recipient. Data mismatch can happen because of error from either of the side. With advancement of technology, you don't need to check all this manually in each and every invoice. You can build validation checks, or in technical terms, artificial intelligence in the software itself to take care of this aspect. If I have to look at any GST software, first thing that I'll check up is whether the software has all these validation checks built into the system or not. If all these rules are built into software itself, then perhaps you don't need to remember all the rules relating to tax invoice by yourself. Now, with a digital tax administration system put in place, tax returns can be filed at various levels of granularity. Aggregate level. A taxpayer aggregates all his sales and purchases made across all the customers, vendors and files one return. At dealers level, a taxpayer aggregates all his sales and purchases made across all the customers, vendors and files one return along with the transactions consolidated customer or vendor wise. Then invoice level. A taxpayer aggregates all his sales and purchases made across all the customers, vendors and files one return along with the transaction details provided invoice wise. And line item level. A taxpayer aggregates all his purchases and sales made across all the customers, vendors and files one return along with the invoice wise transactions capturing item wise details as well. Invoice level detail is necessary for the reconciliation of tax deposits and end-to-end reconciliation of input tax credit. in effective IGST implementation may also require invoice level details. A number of states are capturing invoice level details even in the existing VAT system. It is proposed to follow a two-pronged approach with dealer level granularity of returns in the first phase, followed by invoice level in the next phase. This issue is currently being discussed in the IT subs. People have raised some concern about reconciliation of ITC at invoice level detail due to sheer volume of data. However, this scale is no different than what organizations such as NSC, NSDL, RBI and banks handle on a daily basis. Experience at states that have implemented this also shows that match quality is low initially but improves significantly over period of time. Now, as we have discussed earlier, that there will be matching of invoice level data by GST system. So GST system will throw this data mismatch reports wherever there is inconsistency between the data of supplier and recipient. For example, you can see on your screen receivers mismatch report which shows 3 invoices and the total taxable amount involved in these invoices is rupees 4,60,000 and total mismatch credit is rupees 12,000. Similarly, in suppliers mismatch report, we have 3 invoices where total taxable amount is rupees 4,50,000 and current tax liability to be added is rupees 3,400. As you can see, in case of receiver, first invoice Ola Limited, the taxable value claimed by supplier is rupees 1 lakh, but by the receiver it is 1,10,000. So tax liability is rupees 22,000 and the difference additional liability is rupees 2,000. Similarly, for other 2 invoices also it has calculated the liability. So these are the data mismatch reports which will be available for taxpayer to download from GST system. Friends, at the moment the GST system is also under development phase and these functions are not operational. Otherwise, I would have shown you the exact data mismatch reports downloaded from the GST portal itself. Now, in case of mismatch reports, input tax credit claimed by recipient may be different. Output tax deduction on credit notes issued by claimed by supplier could be one of the reason of mismatch. Supplies through an e-commerce operator, difference between recipient and supplier could be the reason for mismatch report. This can be resolved by filing the corrections or amendments by supplier or recipient in the next tax period return. It will be communicated on the dashboard of both the counterparties, which is supplier and recipient, in the form of mismatch reports. If it remains unresolved in the return of the next period, output tax credit tax along with the interest will be added in GSTR 3 monthly return. In case of ITC mismatch and output tax reduction mismatch, if the counterparty resolves the discrepancy afterwards, the output tax which has been added along with interest will be reduced. Then input tax credit claimed is more than, if input tax credit is more than the tax paid by the supplier on an invoice and debit and note, or supplier has not filed a valid return. This could be the reason, various reasons why the data mismatch can happen. Similarly, recipient has modified the auto drafted invoice, debit note, increased the tax paid amount, claimed for more credit, and the supplier does not accept the upward change in his GSTR 1, or recipient has claimed credit on an added invoice, debit note, and the supplier does not accept the added invoice in his GSTR 1A. In case ITC claimed is more than input tax paid, whether full ITC will be reversed or only the differential has to be reversed, this is still an open discussion. It has still not been resolved, but we hope some kind of guidance will be issued by the department for this in due course of time. Then credit note furnished by the supplier is rejected by the recipient, or it is kept pending whereas ITC was claimed on the related invoice. Credit not furnished by the supplier accepted by the recipient, but input tax credit claimed on it earlier is not reduced. So these are some of the reasons why data mismatch can happen. Now, Coming to reconciliation of data mismatch. Let us first discuss about how the reconciliation of data mismatch reports downloaded from the GST portal will happen. Friends, here these are the two reports which we have shown earlier in the case of data mismatch. Now in the case of receiver mismatch reports, as you can see, the first invoice where taxable value claimed by the receiver is rupees 1,10,000 and by the supplier it is 1 lakh. So that is the main reason for data mismatch. Now what the software will do is software will compare these two values, taxable values, and give a report, and then the taxpayer needs to check up his reports whether his data is correct, and he needs to communicate with the receiver also in case the error is from his side, and either of them might have made any error. So one of them needs to reconcile the data from his end, and then reconciliation can be done. Similarly, in case of supplier mismatch report, for the first invoice, as you can see, the taxable value of supplier and receiver is different. Supplier is showing the taxable value of rupees 1 lakh, whereas the receiver is showing the taxable value of rupees 1,10,000. So one of them must have made some mistake in putting the value of taxable value of invoice, which has resulted in increased tax liability. So they can check up their records and find out, they need to communicate with each other, check up that their own data, and one of them needs to correct it. Unless they correct it, the data will not be reconciled at GST portal. Now for reconciliation of electronic cash ledger, I think first let us discuss about electronic cash ledger and electronic credit ledger. Electronic cash ledger is the summary of all payments made by taxpayer, and this ledger is maintained at GST portal itself. The ledger provides major headwise information on CGST, SGST, IGST and cess. Each major head is further divided into 5 minor heads, which is tax, interest, penalty, fees and any other levy under the law. You can access cash ledger at GST portal after you are logged in at the portal. You can go to the service and there you can select ledgers in the menu bar and click on electronic cash ledgers. Electronic cash ledger in an account is maintained to keep a record of cash receipts and payments, the tax deducted at source or TDS and tax collected at source or TCS. These are also accounted for in electronic cash ledger as cash receipts. A registered taxpayer can make cash receipts to the electronic cash ledger using any of the online or offline modes permitted by GST portal. Cash receipts can be used for making payments like tax liability, interest, penalty, fees and other items. The electronic cash ledger has 4 major heads: IGST, CGST and SGST. And again these are all subdivided. Now let us take an example to explain this. A taxpayer has made a cash receipt of Indian rupees 15,000 to IGST tax in the electronic cash ledger. The taxpayer can utilize this cash receipt of rupees 15,000 to make payment only to IGST tax liability. Similarly, an input tax credit ledger is also maintained at the GST portal. For every taxpayer, the tax credit available in electronic credit ledger can be used in the payment of tax liability, which the system calculates on filing of monthly return by the receiver by taxpayer is credited in this ledger, which he can utilize towards his tax liability. Input tax credit reversed due to mismatch of invoice level data, and payment of any other liability which may arise due to any demand raised by the department. The advantage of having electronic credit ledger and electronic cash ledger is that unlike VAT and CST, where taxpayer can claim excess amount of taxes paid annually, in GST, due to completely digital tax administration system, the processing time for refund has been reduced to just 60 days. But my guess is that with a completely digitized tax administration system, it can be done within a couple of weeks only. That is the beauty of automation of entire chain of tax administration system. I hope I am able to explain what is electronic cash ledger and electronic credit ledger and how it works in GST system. The taxpayer needs to make payment of taxes before he can file his monthly return. So he needs to first check whether he has received full credit of input tax credit in electronic credit ledger or not. If he has not received full credit, which are the invoices for which he has not received input tax credit? What is the reason for not receiving the credit? And if there is any shortfall in the tax liability and the balance available in electronic cash ledger, then he needs to make the payment in cash. Now here I would like to emphasize one thing is that the reconciliation of data of mismatch item of inward supply of goods or services is very important because it directly affects the input tax credit. If there are unreconciled items, the taxpayers wouldn't get credit of ITC in his electronic credit ledger and he will be required to deposit the balance amount in cash. Now ITC can be claimed by the recipient in his return before matching is done. This can be used for the discharge of the related month liability. Then the ITC which gets identified as matched after the matching process can be used for payment of other month liability in later periods. And in case the ITC which gets identified as mismatched after the matching process, this will get added as output tax if not resolved in the next tax period return. It cannot be used for payment of other months liabilities in later period returns. And all these three components will be shown in GST ITC1 form available on a taxpayer's dashboard. The mismatch report will be readily available in detailed form. Now friends, this was about the data mismatch and where all the data mismatch could happen and which all are the items where data mismatch could happen and how it can be reconciled. Now as I mentioned earlier that manually it is not possible to reconcile all the invoice level data in case of large organizations where the organization has got a large volume of invoices every month. For example, suppose a company has got 1000 invoice every day, 500 for purchase and 500 for sale. So they have about say 1000 invoices every day and within a month they will have about 30,000 invoices. Suppose there is a data mismatch in case of just 10% of the invoice level data, means there will be 3000 invoices where the data mismatch is there and that needs to be compared within a limited period of time. So that cannot be done manually, and for that one needs to use software applications, efficient software applications like the software which I am showing you, GOV reports, has a data matching center which will do this work automatically. It will download the data from GST portal, compare this data with the data available in the accounting report and show where all the data mismatch is happening. Friends, at the moment the GST portal itself is in development phase, so very limited functionality is available. Otherwise I could have downloaded some of the reports, data mismatch reports, and have shown you like where the data mismatch is happening. So here on the screen you can see the functionality which is available in the software. Here it is showing GST account where the total amount is 12,500, balance is 12,500, CGST 5,000, IGST 5,000 and SGST is 2,500. Then GST return file is for amount rupees 47,500, balance is 12,500, then CGST 20,000, IGST 7,500 and SGST 20,000. Return and other credits also you can see the amount. Then similarly for interest, penalty, fees and other charges. And we have mismatched items also. Mismatched items are to the tune of rupees 12,500, which includes CGST rupees 5,000, IGST rupees 5,000, and then SGST rupees 2,500. So there is a total mismatch item of rupees 12,500. Now let us have a look at the electronic credit ledger, and as compared to this we have book balance of rupees 25,000. Now the electronic credit ledger is showing 27,500, which is CGST rupees 10,000, IGST rupees 7,500, and SGST rupees 10,000. So this makes the total book balance of rupees 27,500. Now GST account is showing 27,500 and mismatched items are to the tune of 2,500, which includes IGST of rupees 2,500 only. So this will be reconciled by software itself, and software will show us whereas exactly the data mismatch is happening, which particular invoice the data mismatch is happening, and then the taxpayer needs to first of all check his record. In case there is an error from his side, he can rectify his record. In case there is no error from the data which he has uploaded at GST portal, then he needs to communicate with the other party, with his supplier or the recipient of goods, and ask him to check ask them to check their records because there is some data mismatch. In fact, the software is so efficient, it will, the moment it detects the data mismatch, it will send an email to the other party for data mismatch items and request them to reconcile and send a communication to this effect. So this is how the data mismatch reconciliation will happen using the software applications. Now friends, if you have any questions, we can take up those questions.
Okay, there is a question from Rahul Shahi, and he has left, but he said, is all of this done by software?
Yes, the entire work starting from return preparation to downloading of data from GST portal, reconciliation of data will be done by software only. It is not possible to do reconciliation in case of large volume of data manually. So this has to be done by software applications only.
Okay, and there is another questions, a few questions, and questions from Lalit Patel. What is section 38?
Pardon? No, I couldn't hear properly.
There is a question, I'm not sure which section he's referring to, but he's talking about section 38 of your presentation.
Section 30?
38.
No, I need to check up the particular rule. If he is asking about any practical aspect, then I can straight away answer. If he is referring to some interpretation of rule, I need to read the rule again and then answer his question, because he has not mentioned even what is it about.
Yep, I agree. Lalit, we might get back to you. If you still not too sure and want to clarify that, please let us know. We might take it offline. And then I have a question from Akil Goyal. How possibly GST is implemented?
How possibly GST is implemented means?
Not too sure.
No, I'm not able to understand what is he asking.
Yeah, I'm just reading the question through how possibly GST implemented. Akil, if you can come back, if you're still with us, please come back to us and clarify your questions, and we'll attend to you. So I'll go moving on to the next questions from Dinesh Singhal. By when do we expect GST portal to be live for trial?
See, GST portal is live for trials or testing purpose, but this is at the moment for software application providers only. It is not for taxpayers. But we expect GST portal to be fully live from 1st of July.
Okay, and I have a question from Atul Pawar. What about annual return reconciliation?
What about any?
Annual return reconciliation.
Annual return is based on all the monthly returns filed. So whatever is the data mismatch which is left in monthly return, for that sufficient time is given by the government, which is about 9 months, to reconcile all those items, and its effect can be given in annual return. But at the moment we are also answering all this based on the rules and our interpretation. In practical, we also need to see how it will happen in annual return.
And the next two questions, can you suggest any good software from Submit and Upprint? Because it's from Gov Report, so I guess we've got to be pretty biased here, right? We're not?
Yes, we will we will suggest Gov reports only, because see, this software is coming from an Australian company which is a leader in GST solutions for last 8 years. It is a tested platform which has been customized for Indian requirements. However, I would suggest you to compare it with the other softwares, functionality and everything, and decide by yourself.
Okay, the next questions I have is from Pavin Goel. Data matching is also done with HSN or SAC codes.
No, I didn't get what is he trying to say.
So,
Data matching
yeah,
is also done by
HSN or SAC codes.
HSN code and SAC code. Okay. Yes, it will be done.
And the next question from Sandip Singh is, how will your software get data from GSTN?
See, software application will be connected through taxpayer to GSTV portal, and from there it will fetch the data. We have shown this how the data is downloaded in case of GST 2, in case of one of our webinar earlier. I mean, I can share the link for YouTube video, and there you can see how the data is downloaded for test data, which is available at GSTN portal.
The next question that I have, it is required from Nitin Gupta. It is required to upload every invoice on GST portal. Is it required?
Yes, in case of B2B, all invoice level data is to be uploaded at GST portal, not B2C.
Okay, the next question, I think I can answer that from Vishal Sharma. Cost of software, we will be releasing the cost of the pricing structure for all for Gov reports from Wednesday next week. To coincide with our launch as well. The next questions I have from supply and receipts. From Nitin Gupta again, and that's what is the supply and receipt. I'm not too sure the questions. Yeah, I'm not too sure. So we move to the next question. Is software provided by government or we have to purchase?
Software provided by the government
is software provided by government or we have to purchase?
See, government will come out with an Excel based utility which will be suitable more for small taxpayers who have, say, limited number of invoices. But in case you have an organization, then you need to buy a software. Excel based utilities can provide functionality which can upload the data or download the data for a limited number of invoices only.
Okay, and the next question is from Dinesh Singhal again. Have we mapped our software with GSTN?
Have we?
Have we mapped our software with GSTN?
Yes, we have done.
Okay, and the next question is from Anjali Sharma. Mismatch amount shown by software is aggregate amount, or will it show segregated amount, i.e. invoice wise?
It will show invoice wise. Data mismatch will be invoice wise. We need to check each invoice wise data.
Okay, and the next question, I'm not too sure if you get this. What about small trader? I'm not too sure of the questions. Yep.
Small traders means what? Small traders also need to file their GST return, provided they are covered in GST compliance. In case their turnover exceeds rupees 20 lakhs, then they need to file GST return.
Okay. Vinod, the Lalit came back with section 38, which he said that was mentioned at the bottom of slide 20. So can you refer to that and slide 20, what was section 38?
The balance lying in electronic cash ledger and credit ledger after payment of tax, interest, penalty, fees or other amounts payable under CGST law may be refunded in accordance with the provisions of section 38. See, this is what the rule says, but in practice, yes, how this will be implemented, that is yet to be seen. We have also seen the rules only. Any other questions, please?
Yeah, we do have a series of other questions. Just give me one moment.
See, I will suggest you to select some of the questions which are related with the practical aspect. See, theoretical aspect we are not covering in this session, so we can probably answer to them through email or something.
Okay, I think this question is good, Vinod. How will GST be able to counter a situation in case there exists a black market chain together?
Black marketing of what? See, digital tax administration systems will have various kinds of software logical controls to put a check on various, on different frauds. And this I have discussed in detail in one of the webinars earlier, practical aspects of GST. You can please see the video. There we have covered what all frauds can be controlled by this system.
Okay, which seems to there are a few more questions, Vinod, and there's quite a lot. So I'll just go through one by one, if that's all right with you. After filing GST R3, we can rectify again by Sumit.
After filing GST 3 monthly return cannot be revised. Then you need to go to annual return.
This is
the
a question from.
Process of, yep. See, just 1 second, I'll try to just add something over here. See, filing of monthly return process is like monthly return is not prepared by the taxpayer. Monthly return is auto-populated by the GST system based on the GSTR 1 and GSTR 2, and that GSTR 3A is given to the taxpayer for his acceptance. Once he accepts, then it is two parties matching, and thereafter in case there is any change, then it needs to be incorporated in annual return with reconciliation.
There is a question from Satya Gupta. As you mentioned regarding GST portal availability for taxpayer, how easy it would be to use by layman? Alignment
of what?
I mean a simple man.
No, I am not sure if I am able to understand what he wants to ask.
So what I believe this is Satya's questions, is that is it easy to use by...
He can please elaborate his question so that we can answer it properly.
Yeah, I think it just means a simple man, simple man, they go in and use the GST portal.
No, I still don't get his question. No.
Okay. By when do we expect GST portal to be live alpha trial? Which I think we covered that.
Yeah.
This webinar is recorded and will be posted on our website. So for those that have been asking these questions, it will be on our website early next, possibly tomorrow.
Okay, now if the questions are over,
yep, I think we have covered most of the questions.
Okay, friends, in case you have similar questions or queries relating to implementation or other aspects, I have created a group at LinkedIn where accounting professionals have joined. So we exchange these problems and issues with them, seek their advices on this. In case you are at LinkedIn, you can join this group, GST knowledge sharing group, and you can post your queries over here. Me or somebody else will definitely answer your queries.
Yes, either that or also you can send us the questions for us to forward to Vinod, or we try our best to answer your questions. I believe we are now wrapping up, right, Vinod?
Yeah.
Yep. So I would, and before we finish off, I would like to thank you all who online to meet with us during these webinar sessions. For those of you who have been following GAR reports for the past few weeks, we will be officially launching GAR reports in Delhi on the 14th and Mumbai on the 15th. If you would like information about those events, please send us emails or this. For those who might not be able to
okay, thank you.